If there was one moment throughout God of War Ragnarok that could be considered the most consequential scene in the game, what would you pick? In a game filled with amazing cutscenes to reinforce the story, there's only one scene I can think of as the best example of storytelling in the entire game, when Atreus finds Groa's prophecy. But before I tell you why, if you haven't finished God of War Ragnarok, go finish the game and come back. This is your spoiler warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, we're good now? To explain why this scene is the most significant scene in the game, we need to be on the same page. After playing God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, there's a few rules we need to be comfortable with. 1. No one in the God of War series is a reliable narrator. If a character speaks about a situation and they were not present at the event, their words cannot necessarily be trusted, even if they're trying to tell the truth. You're actually just participating in a game of telephone. But if a character was present for the event that they speak of, you have to discern whether they have the actual motivation to speak the whole truth about the situation. And rule number 2, the triptychs found in the game are meant to misdirect Odin. They are broken down into 2 categories, historical and prophetic. The historical triptychs describe past events in a more straightforward and accurate way, but the ones that speak of future events are mostly and almost completely unreliable. With that out of the way, I'll explain why these rules matter and why this scene is so important. See, when we start the game, we're introduced to Odin, and through this small interaction, just a few minutes, we learn a few things about him. He's manipulative, arrogant, influential, he wants to prevent Ragnarok, and he's missing his right eye. Odin tells Kratos that he wants peace, and to achieve it, he wants Atreus to stop looking for Tyr. This brief conversation indicates that he has a reason to believe that Tyr is the catalyst of Ragnarok, and that Odin has him hidden somewhere. As for the player, you know that Ragnarok is supposed to bring about the end of the world, and Odin knows that you have this knowledge, as he has been spying on Kratos and Atreus ever since the first game. And he is also aware that the main cast knows that Tyr is supposed to lead the war against Asgard. To Odin, Tyr's absence is a benefit to everyone. After all 9 realms are supposed to perish in Ragnarok, but most importantly to Odin, his realm and he will perish. Odin claims to want peace, but another word for peace is order, and another word for order is control. It's true, Kratos does desire peace, but he will not let the gods dictate his path, and his past experience has taught him that gods only meddle in mortal life for their own benefit. So he turns down Odin's offer for peace, knowing that the caveat is subservience. As much as Kratos says he denies prophecy, he believes in it wholeheartedly, and he knows that somehow everything he's seen can and will come to fruition. Kratos has literally killed fate in the past, but even while doing so, everything they foretold happened. So now we fast forward to the scene. Atreus has convinced Kratos to find Tyr, and then shortly after, Atreus finds this triptych. Having finished Ragnarok, we all know that this is not the real Tyr. Odin, upset that Kratos, Atreus, and Mimir have defied him, instructed Durlin to give the group a hint, quote unquote, to the location of Tyr. Odin then took on the guise of Tyr as his ace in the hole, because how could Tyr lead the war against Asgard if he's really just Odin in disguise? So our heroes find a tortured and broken Tyr that declares himself to now be a pacifist due to the trauma he's endured, and a short while later, we get the best scene in the game. Atreus reveals that he's found a triptych with an interesting revelation. By this point, Odin Tyr has sold the team on his cowardice, so when they enter the triptych, Tyr, the Asgardian god that had a great relationship with the giants, says,
"The giants always did enjoy hiding their secrets in plain sight."
With just the slightest air of disdain or dismissiveness. Atreus, hoping to impress his father and Tyr, exclaims, "Well, wait till you see this." And then we are introduced to Groa's story. Atreus believes that the news he's about to present to Tyr will convince him to take up arms against Asgard.
Ah yes, here we have Groa's search for her missing husband. She was relentless in her attempt to find him, meditated for weeks on end. Unfortunately, she found something else. A vision of Ragnarok.
Word of Groa's vision reached Odin. He sought her out, demanded a private retelling.
Didn't like what he heard, apparently.
Throughout this point in the scene, Odin Tyr is still selling the lie, having not learned any new information he didn't already know. He was present at the event where Groa told him this story. What he doesn't know is the second half of this story, and so it's very easy for Odin Tyr to keep his composure.
It's not real.
Presumably, Groa requested her ashes be returned to Jotunheim, while her soul found peace in the light. Difficult to imagine Odin respecting those wishes. The champion?
We see an image of the champion, and Atreus, wanting to be his own man, assumes that image is of himself. But there's something interesting about the champion. Ignore the helmet, but pay attention to what happens here. Notice the champion's spear begins to multiply inexplicably. The scene morphs, and next we see two armies facing off against each other. On the left, we see an army with shields containing the glyph for Asgard, and on the right, we see an army whose shields contain the glyphs for Alfheim, Midgard, Svartalfheim, Jotunheim, and Muspelheim. Notice Vanaheim is missing from the fray. This is because Vanaheim has technically already been beaten and are under the Asgardian Guard. Odin has chosen a new Valkyrie queen, and the Asgardian army now consists of Niflheim, Helheim, Vanaheim, and Asgard. But as I said, this was all meant to appease Odin and his ego. We then have the shift that Odin wasn't expecting, and the shift that actually makes him go silent. We have a look at the champion. In one hand, a spear, in the other hand, Gjallarhorn. And when he blows Gjallarhorn, the only soldiers that disappear are the Asgardian troops. Ragnarok strikes down, and only Asgard is destroyed. Odin is dumbfounded, and this here is where we get our first hint as to who he really is. This prophecy was Odin's power up until this point, because at this point, Odin finds out that any leverage he actually has against the other 8 realms is just false. He has no leverage. They have no reason to seek his influence or listen to him or abide by his power, because when Gjallarhorn is blown, Asgard is destined to fall, not the other 8 realms. He is speechless. This is where his mask begins to slip. A lot of people have said this slight bump into Atreus means nothing, but I dare you to do this. Close your right eye and put your right arm down. Can you see that arm? To what point do you need to move your arm for you to be able to see it by looking straight ahead? Notice that is a pretty large blind spot that you have there, right?
True, Loki? You a little trickster? I'm just messing around. Of course he means to betray me, huh? Heimdall? Thor! Get down here!
All, Father.
Don't do that!
You know what else you don't have? Depth perception. You can't tell how far something is away from you or how close something is when only one eye is open. If you pay close attention to how Odin interacts with everyone throughout the rest of the game, he tends to lose sight of people on his right side. And even when you fight Odin, he doesn't actually do a lot of hand-to-hand combat. Most of what he does are straight line beams, AoE attacks, and homing attacks because he doesn't have the depth perception. Conversely, as Odin Tyr is visibly distraught, Kratos denies that he and Atreus are even in the prophecy. And while Atreus tries to convince his father that they have Tyr and a fighting chance, Odin Tyr angrily stares at the prophecy, silently trying to maintain his composure until he finally speaks.
I won't allow prophecy to define my choices.
But we decided...
No, Atreus. This is wrong.
Tyr, the god beloved by all, privy to the secrets of the giants, goes into complete denial. After this scene, Odin actively looks for a way to defy prophecy. Every decision he makes after this is directly influenced by this scene. He searches for the remaining pieces of the mask. He amasses an army in Asgard. He appoints a new Valkyrie queen, and he brings the Midgardians, a group destined to fight against him, into Asgard and gives them asylum. On the first playthrough of the game, this scene is nothing more than Tyr reinforcing his fear of conflict that we observe throughout the rest of the game. But the second time around, this scene is the clear turning point of the plot, the catalyst for the rest of the game's events. God of War Ragnarok's ability to lie to the player while telling a story is truly a sight to behold. But those are just my thoughts. I'm Late to the Gamer, this is Console and Control, and I want to thank you for watching and ask you, what were your favorite scenes in God of War Ragnarok? Tell me down in the comments section. Hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell, and have a great day.